Namaste and welcome, beloved ones, to Shri and Kira Live. I am wisdom teacher Shri Ramka.
And I am Master Lady Kira Ra, coming to you from a beautifully glorious sunny day here in the Andes Mountains of Ecuador at Tosa Blue Mountain. And what a week ahead, a really great week to be catching us live or anytime. We're just glad you're here.
Absolutely. And before we get into the sharing, I have a few announcements. I want to make sure we're all on the same playing field here because we're going to have some fun. And so first off, be sure if you have any comments or questions, put them in the YouTube chat because that's where they'll get picked up and forwarded to us. And as time permitting, we're going to be able to comment on your questions, and you get to help guide the conversation a bit. Of course, we have lots to share about the upcoming energies. And oh my goodness, speaking of energy, how was the full moon for you?
Let's take a breath on that, right? I mean, and we're still in it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that beautiful, beautiful high energy full moon that we just, it's still radiating, but there was a moment there where I wasn't sure what planet am I on? What is the energy I'm experiencing? Why is it I don't need any sleep? What was your experience?
Well, as you're breathing in that experience, and Shri, as you were asking those questions, let's show them what they were feeling. So I did put together a graphic, and this is a really important moment. This is where we're at right now. This is the February 2022. It's the one I just sent you this morning, honey. No. It's the energy that I just sent you in the 3 moons. No. This is what happens when we don't test. Yes, there it is.
Okay. All right.
So this is what's happening right now. Now, all those other graphics Shri was putting up quickly, the first one was actually in the up-level calendar. That is the February energy, as was the second one, which is the entire year energy flow. If you don't have the calendar, go get it, because you should know what those are. But what you're staring at right now in this moment is this energy of the full moon ignition. Remember that we have started a full 2-month cycle. And this 2-month cycle is taking us from February 16 to April 16. And this is the moment that we've written the article about. Maybe somebody can put the link to the article in the YouTube chat. You want to go read this article. But this moment of the full moon, this is when the question Shri was saying, what planet am I on? Where am I? Who am I?
Yes.
You are, if you look deep into this is the ignition of the self-ascended divine mastery presence as the Taurus field that ignites the you as the 0-point energy generator. Now, why is this so important? For a lot of reasons. Number one, and if you did not catch last week's show or read the article, I'm serious, you need to catch up. So right now, we are in this moment where all that I am as you are is the absolute active principle of the law of instantaneous manifestation. Now, why is this so important to know and understand? Number one, because the law of instantaneous manifestation, as with all pure energy, is neutral. Everything has the capacity for instantaneous manifestation because it exists in the Sea of Neutrality. So in many ways, that is its own protective energy. In order to exist as the Sea of Neutrality, thereby consciously commanding the law of instantaneous manifestation, is to have completely, and this is important for those of you that are taking notes, to have completely and totally released the cycle of self-sabotage. Now, as you bring your hand to your heart and you're noticing that energy, self-sabotage can have a lot of other words around it. Remember that we are limited by the idioms, by the languages of this experience of density that we have all created. However, within that field of neutral energy, all is created. And in order to sustain the field of density, to literally voluntarily entrap you, is to immediately, and I mean from the moment of birth, because remember it's through the sacred sequence of incarnation, from the moment of birth to say yes to the belief systems and all of the energetic experiences that are put in front of you. And through that yes, to arrive at this moment where you are able to transcend, witness, and experience what density is and is not through the transcendent lens of the one who sincerely owns, forgive them, they know not what they do. Love them, they know not what they do. And to arrive there through the lens of the Sea of Neutrality, rather than the lens of the spiritualized ego, that through even that statement creates a polarization and a sense of hierarchy.
Yes.
So this is an extraordinarily profound moment of awakened consciousness into mastery presence. So before I show you the graphic one any further, I want to make sure Sri doesn't have anything he wants to chip in before we go further.
Yeah, because this is powerful and important. And
yes.
I want to make sure that we're all tracking as we move forward. You know, when we took birth here, when we took birth into physical form, for 99.9% of us, it was a moment of separation. We were separated from our mother. We were separated into a individual body, yes? And that puts an imprint in the human psyche that I am somehow separated from the one. And this indeed is the journey we have all transited throughout our lives as we seek to reunite, as we seek awakening, as we claim the truth of who we are, we begin to discover we're not separated.
Right.
We have always been part of the one. And this is a shift in consciousness, a shift in perspective.
Yeah.
So victim consciousness is that state of being, that state of orientation. It's a position that says there's someone out there having control over me or abusing me or somehow dominating me. There is the rescuer and the victim. And so that triangle.
And the abuser, of course.
The victim, rescuer, abuser energy, we circulate that in our psychology until we heal it, until we grow through it. And so if we choose to live a life of self-ascension, a life of divine mastery, then it's necessary to heal this. And as Kara shared, it's forgive them, they know not what they do. Love them, they know not what they do. And that applies to you as well.
Indeed. And to remember that even within that statement, it can carry judgment. So how do you arrive? And I'm so sorry, our studio was set up that I had the sun in my face, guys. So I need to change our whole setup there. So forgive me. Sri and I are going to move our chairs.
Sure.
There we go. Sorry, guys. It's really sunny here today. And we are loving that. There we go. Thank you. Now I can look at all of you without doing that. All right. So when we arrive at the owning, at the knowing and of that spiritually responsible essence of that which you are, when we arrive there and that gift of us comes forward, Sri, would you show them the self-sabotage graphic? It means that we have, it's the density trifecta. Right there. We have walked through what the masters refer to as the density trifecta. So as Sri was just sharing with you, when we're born into this realm through the sacred sequence of incarnation, through that sacred sequence of incarnation, we consciously have selected this experience that we are in the current creation of. But what happens is that you are immediately born into this density trifecta energy, which is victim consciousness. And victim consciousness is really the first pyramid you navigate, right? Everything in this experience is all about these trinities times trinities. So the first one is that victim, rescuer, and abuser. And this is the trifecta that sustains and creates the self-sabotage cycle. This is literally the key to the way out. This is like, so once you get it, it's so easy. Because what keeps you stuck is the self-sabotage cycle. That's why things are always feeling the same. For example, a victim will always have in their lives a rescuer and an abuser, and they will create that role for everyone. Everyone will be placed and always positioned, hence polarity, in one of those roles. So anytime you, and we'll come back to this graphic in a moment, but I want you to just really take in right now through this density trifecta, the victim, rescuer, abuser, right? Because this is the world that we are in that is calling forward the greatest moment for the opportunity of conscious expansion that we have ever had. You know, Shri and I think we should have this conversation on the air. We were having a conversation the other day because, you know, Shri really is the key to unlocking David Hawkins' work for the world. I mean, what Shri has done and where you have taken it since Hawkins was able to do it, I just bow before. And this is the book that we pray will be out this year, because this book Shri has been writing for 20 years. Our first date was when we met David Hawkins. We literally went to see him in Sedona, and that's when we first met him. So that was our first date, which I thought was very funny and very beautiful. And so the reason I'm mentioning this, Shri, is one of the things that I'm noticing, and I'm really noticing this, guys, around our March event, and I really want to talk to you about this, because the Ascended Masters have made it very clear that this event in March, which no accident, right, that it's happening between that February and April 2-month window, and it's sitting there as that apex moment. For 2 years, I have been trying to gather people just because it's the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that you brought, and you would be amazed at how challenging that has been, because the fame addiction, everyone who's just really addicted to the fame of who they think they are, the ego addiction, and the inability to raise consciousness. And this is where Hawkins comes in, that you and I were talking about how he was discussing that the certain levels of consciousness that were existing on the planet at the time that he was there, and the way that people grow. And what we were realizing is that we've gone well beyond that.
Yeah. We are a living paradox.
We really are.
You know,
we really
when
are.
I say we, I'm talking about all of us.
All this collective conscious experience.
And one of the things that happens is that what David Hawkins innovated that's very useful for all mankind is that his levels of consciousness create an objective way to discern truth from falsehood, to discern the amount of love or light in a person or a work, a writing. And that's part of the truth or falsehood. And part of the issue with humanity is that a lot of people have jumped on a bandwagon of a communal orientation, meaning I've joined this club. It might be political, it might be social, whatever, but it's a point of view. I've joined a point of view.
Right. I really want to talk about the levels of consciousness that we were talking about. Are you forgetting? Because I can remind you.
Remind me.
Okay. So you had just finished listening to David speaking about that gurus were at certain levels of consciousness, and that humanity at the time of his writing, he was talking about politicians and about the level of consciousness of politicians, and that the level of consciousness was at a level, and you know these levels, of serving.
Right.
And that we were discussing how, while the overall level of consciousness might not have fallen back, what has shifted is the level of consciousness of those that are now entering in from a level of consciousness that is about sustaining the density.
Yes. Yeah. So for those of you that are uncertain, David Hawkins wrote the book. His groundbreaking book was Power versus Force.
Go look. It's an old book. It's worth reading.
It came out in the 90s. Mm-hmm. And he has had many other works since then. But the key is understanding how levels of consciousness affect perception and belief.
So levels of consciousness affecting perception and belief, because the only way you're going to unwind out of this is to listen. And that's why we're sharing this, that you really need to grab this and hear this, because you can get yourself out of this cycle.
And so for humanity as a whole, meaning the whole global environment, was really in a self-defeating level of consciousness. And I'm using his scale at around 200, just below 200.
His scale goes from 0 to 1,000.
0 to 1,000. So 1,000 is the avatar, the saints, etc. And so the key here is that humanity was in a self-negating energy up until the harmonic convergence, 1987, at which point, as a whole, we began to pop through. And what happens is we started to see an improvement in caring, on the planet. That's a sign of elevated consciousness. How we care for our animals, how we care for each other.
Right.
This is one of the bellwether things in any society to get a glimpse of its level of consciousness. And so
it's everything.
When people begin to get out above the fear, the dominant fear, until fear is part-time rather than full-time, they're in what we call the 300s in his scale. And this is the place where pride, initiative, courage, and willingness, those
the few, the proud, the Marines,
the highest value of
right.
The Marines.
It's that high value kind of, yeah.
And the patriotism and all of these things that help lift people out of the mud, lift them out of harming each other into a cohesive, let's go forward kind of energy. And that's the 300s.
It's a we moment. Yeah. It's on the pyramid of spiritual awakening. This is that lift from pure density consciousness into that first level of, oh, it's not just about me. However, what it is it's limited to just the we that I approve of.
And so this we consciousness, this activism, at first is a healthy step
it's a
forward.
Lift. It's a lift.
It's moving out of pure selfishness into kind of a group identity, and helping each other within the group at least. But what's been interesting, I've been observing these levels of consciousness full time since 2002.
And he has. I kid you not, he has.
And everybody I counsel, all of our groups, I track the levels, I look at how they respond and what's going on, and that'll be in a book that'll come out.
He's got case study after case study. We have to get this book done.
But here's the piece that comes back to today.
Exactly.
15 years ago, más o menos, plus or minus, everybody in the Western societies was lifting into a greater field of inclusiveness. And it all began to shift around 9/11, to be frank. But it takes time for these things to ripple through consciousness. And so at that time, the political leaders in the United States and other countries they had a fair number of them were true statesmen. They held principles and ideals that affected everybody, that nobody was immune from the law, that we helped each other.
And it wasn't that you had to agree with them. It was what we're wanting to share here, because remember, I am here as the Sea of Neutrality, that as these principles were being shared, this is not about looking at politics. This is about looking at the essence of those that were called to serve, regardless how density made that look. It's just talking about those that felt the call.
So to make what could be a fascinating conversation a little more succinct,
and we're happy to go deeper into it on Monday Magic if you want,
is this what's happened in the last 20 years is the level of consciousness of the politicians has declined.
Because those that are being called to serve are reacting rather than responding. It's a reactive energy that is very tightly, because we're going to go back to that graphic, right? That's very tightly aligned to the humanity self-sabotage cycle. Remember, or you wouldn't be watching this show, we have culminated many times here before. Yes. That's why there's this deep-seated fear. That's why everyone is running around with their own essence of what they think that is, because it's caught in the density self-sabotage model. We are at that moment, and this is why we're having these conversations of consciousness. We are at the moment where, as we relax and remember that consciousness that is eternal, that is here right now in this vast realm of potentialities, yes, and that we have all through the sacred sequence of incarnation. Let's put that graphic back up again, Sri. I think I can do it since I now know. There it is. So what's happened is that all of these levels of consciousness, that self-sabotage cycle, which is made only through the density trifecta. Well, what's the density trifecta? It's the inverted triangle within the triangle. You see the fear, doubt, hesitancy? So now if you were to draw a line between fear and doubt and 2 lines down to hesitancy, you would have the upside down pyramid that, when married through the spin of self-sabotage with the victim, rescuer, abuser, becomes your merkaba of creation. It's not that you're never creating. The law of instantaneous manifestation is.
Yes.
Nothing can ever deny that. Nothing can ever stop that. The question is, are you spinning the merkaba that sustains and creates the self-sabotage cycle, which is the only way that merkaba can be completed? Right? You're born into victim, rescuer, abuser. It's everything. Anytime you blame, anytime it's somebody else's fault, anytime you're projecting, it's all about that. Remember that the victim, rescuer, abuser at the end of the day is you. All of the three is the one. There is no separation between them. And you cannot lift out of this because most people don't even realize they're spinning it as their merkaba of creation, and it's an equilateral experience. But that second triangle that creates this to make the merkaba is created by the eternally spinning cycle of fear, doubt, and hesitancy. And I'm going to immediately go back to right now. I want to show you where we're at in the full moon cycle right now, because you really need to see, you see the merkaba? That's what I was just talking about. This is the merkaba of self-ascension. This is the merkaba in its ascended golden ratio form. This is where all, and I mean all, of your chakras have become in the state of ascended presence. Thereby, you are able to hold multidimensional conscious awareness. And in that experience, you have transcended the victim triangle. So instead of the victim, abuser, healer, you have taken that spiral and lifted through it so that you are now the teacher, mentor, healer, able to sustain and stay in the ascended merkaba, which is that literal law of instantaneous manifestation as the 0-point generator of that torus field of ignition.
Yeah.
And I just want you to breathe that in. I know that can be a lot to learn at first. Go to our website, TriandKira.com. Learn about self-ascension. There's a zillion things, free information there. There's an ebook. Download it. Learn about it.
You know, one of the most important things is to recognize,
Yes,
to reconceptualize your existence. And this does not mean you become mental or a brainiac. What it means is we get out of the rut of looking at things through the conditioned lens that we've inherited and cultivated through what we read and what we give our energy to. You have two guides right here in the body. One is here and the other is here. Your heart is a wonderful guide, right? And the heart without discernment can be easily misled.
Right? And this is why, Sri, I think it's important as we go back to that level of consciousness conversation that we were having, as well as David Hawkins, because the heart, what is it at the heart energy for Hawkins? What is
500.
that? It's 500. So that's a really important barometer, because I love that's right in the middle of his scale, right? And his scale was, and he admits his scale was arbitrary based upon what we had to work with. But when you look at 0 to 1,000 and 500 is the heart, let us not forget that at the heart, which is the middle of that level of consciousness that he was able to chart, the heart also becomes the foundation and the root of the divine galactic blueprint, our ascended chakra system. And that's when we stabilize out of that heart energy that often is very much stuck in victim energy.
It is.
A lot of people walk into the heart and become greater victims than they ever have been because of the naivety of the empowerment.
Well, there's one thing I've observed, especially in the last several years, in the near time, and that is people have been rationalizing their fear.
Ooh.
So consider for a moment, and I'm not here to create controversy. I'm an observer. So COVID comes in, and yes, it's an uncertainty, and it stimulates fear in many people.
It stimulated Monday magic. I mean, it really got a lot of us in the high gear as well.
And so I'm using that as the near-term example.
No, it was definitely a propulsion.
So what did it do? Also, the fear became a fuel, an energy to stimulate all kinds of rationalities, thoughts, perspectives, positionalities, whether it's conspiracy or health or whatever it might be.
It brought up what was bubbling. It's a great manifester. We did a whole show on this. Go back about 3 shows, and we talked about COVID as the manifester.
And so for each and every one of us, sometimes because fear is not fun to feel. Ooh, there's 3 F's. Fear is not fun to feel. We repress anything that is unpleasant. So when we have this undercurrent of fear, let alone in the entire planetary thought body, there is so much fear circulating around this planet that we unconsciously kind of breathe it in, and then it serves as an energetic to have associated fear-based thinking. Every emotion has a corresponding thought. Every thought has a corresponding emotion.
Right.
That's almost inescapable because it comes with this body. So if the fear is stimulating thoughts that correspond or are compatible with fear, and that gives us the possibility now of rationalizing and grouping ourselves into fear-based positions, groups and affiliations that limit your capacity to lift.
Now, there it is, right? Because we're at this moment, February 16 through April 16, where I am here. The Sea of Neutrality is glowing. The spin, the momentum, the energy is yours to claim. And because of the neutrality of all energy, we are in a moment where that density trifecta, and what is that density trifecta? I want you to gaze at it again. It's fear, doubt, and hesitancy. And it's fear, doubt, and hesitancy that hold the self-sabotage cycle. And so it looks for someone to blame because you are not here now. Oh, that one said this or that one did that. From the Sea of Neutrality and the energy of the transcendent teacher, mentor, healer, every single thing that has been said, shared, or experienced has been done to assist you to decide in that very breath moment, am I a victim, a rescuer, an abuser, or am I a teacher, mentor, healer? It's that moment where that self-sabotage cycle of fear, doubt, and hesitancy that's wrapped in all of it, right? All of that is able to stand aside because the master within is able to hold that 500 frequency of consciousness in the empowered presence of the heart as the foundation of the ascended being, and to sincerely ask the question, what in me invited this to be? What in me? And the gift of what in me invited this to be is it's also completely neutral. Make sure you use it universally. Are you celebrating enough? When you have those celebrations, hey, what in me invited this to be? And what you might just discovered is maybe I had the confidence to ask, or I had the presence to do it. Maybe I trusted myself, maybe because it just felt wonderful.
Yes.
Right? So make sure that you're collecting all of the value of what in me invited this to be on all sides of the experiences. Often we only call it in when something has happened and we're like, oh, what in me invited this to be? Well, then what you're doing is you're a victim. Oh, well, poor me. What in me invited me?
Who do I blame?
Right? Exactly.
I'll blame me.
And that's the importance of understanding. What in me invited this to be will have the effect of the consciousness it meets, as does the law of instantaneous manifestation. And so I do want to show you again, because it's that important. This density trifecta energy is as large and lofty right now as is the crystalline moon energy of February. And we're going to go back to that calendar in just a moment. But this is important to understand because remember, the victim, rescuer, abuser is only a single experience. It has no lift, presence, or even potentiality for manifestation until it is activated, sustained, created. The self-sabotage cycle is what keeps it alive. And through the continual spin of the self-sabotage cycle, it creates the second triangle. Remember, a merkaba requires an up-pointing triangle and a down-pointing triangle. And that second triangle is created through your fear, doubt, and hesitancy. And it spins in density without the need for conscious awareness. It spins in density without the need for conscious awareness. So that cycle is what's being reflected by the consciousness, because the pull of density right now is appealing to a consciousness that is much more about my group only.
Yep.
It's just above density consciousness, but it's in, and I mean stuck in, spiritual activism. And when you're stuck in spiritual activism, Sri and I shared this 20 years ago when we first started teaching this material, that it's the most dangerous place, and that humanity was entering spiritual activism right around 2003, 2004, that it would open the ascension escalator. It did. We've put out all this material, 2015 to 2021, those 7 years where humanity has had, what were the two polarities? Fear or trust.
Yeah.
Fear or trust. And so when we ask, what in me invited to be, with the trust of the blessing of the revelation, then we start commanding the law of instantaneous manifestation through the presence of our crystalline essence without anything other than steadfast commitment, focused awareness, and complete trust. Another trifecta, only this one sustains us in the merkaba of self-ascension, which is no longer equilateral. This is why even lifting into a merkaba state through beautiful meditations, if you are lifting into an equilateral merkaba, all you're doing is lifting into the highest state of density consciousness that will pop you into spiritual activism. And this is where many get stuck. And it's a natural progression. Because when you're sitting in that energy, when for so long, everything that's wanted you to stay stuck here has told you this is what you must believe, when consciousness tries to expand, it's always rebuked. Sri and I have been on the cutting edge of consciousness since 2002 and continue to push that envelope today, because we are at a moment we have never been at before.
Yes.
And what a blessing that we are here together co-creating this stunning moment.
I'm sure most of you can relate to the experience of having had an inspiring weekend or moment, and you share it with friends or family, and you're immediately rebuked. You're immediately said, the energy is you're nuts. What are you doing? That kind
All
of thing.
they're doing is giving you the gift of saying, "Are you sure?" Right? If you can walk through the face of it, you know.
And so because you've all experienced this, consider for a moment, this too is a universal challenge to our self-ascension. And we even hold that inside ourselves. We kind of go, no, this is too good to be true. Or I haven't earned it, or I don't deserve it, because the victim energy is still running. So we keep ourselves stuck. Mm-hmm. In order to break free, we do need to exercise a choice and our steadfast commitment to keep walking the path of your self-ascension.
Now, I want to ask, how many of you during this past week didn't sleep the way you usually sleep, right? How many of you are raising your hands going, yeah, it was kind of a wild week as far as like how I was sleeping? And how many of you have felt like a lot of stuff was clearing as it was coming together? Kind of like that simultaneous where you find the puzzle piece and then it fits, but in doing so, there's less over here. So, look at how your week has been flowing, because this is, I want to go back to, let's put up the February calendar, Sri. I want to show you the February up-level calendar, because this is really going to show you what's going on. So remember, as Sri was just mentioning, this whole month is about choice. This entire month is about choice. And it's also about the law of instantaneous manifestation arising and anchoring. So if it's arising and anchoring, is it arising and anchoring your victim consciousness or your ascended awareness? And how that's going to anchor is through your steadfast commitment to illuminating your divine mastery presence. This week, right now, this month, right now. Look at this week, guys. Do you see it? This is all crown energy, inspiration. You're in the temple, the illumination. This is a week of inspiration, inspiration, inspiration. If you're inspired or if you get a great idea, yes. Get it out there. Poor Jess. I've been sending her so many emails. I'm like, what about this? Let's do this. Because that's the energy we're in right now. The 20th through the 26th is inspiration and creation. So really take that in, inspiration and creation. So where are you consciously inspired and where are you consciously creating? Because everything Sri and I have been sharing with you today, remember, the law of instantaneous manifestation right now, it's anchoring, but it's neutral. So are you commanding it? Or is your victim consciousness commanding it for you through the illumination of the merkaba of self-sabotage? Pay attention. Fear, doubt, hesitancy.
You know, and it ties into something that Archangel Zadkiel shared with me 20 years ago,
Wow.
which is you will be known by your energy, not your words.
Yeah. Wow, do you guys feel that? I'm just covered in beautiful.
And so
beautiful.
Sometimes we use our words. Remember, I talked about fear and using rational concepts. Sometimes we use our words to help ourselves, to give ourselves a get out of work, to say, I don't have to really work on this because I've got the language.
And remember, you've got the language too. The mantra of self-ascension.
There you go.
Non-dogmatic, easy to use, 4 simple sentences. I am here. Right? Evasive breath. I am ready. I am open. Guide me. I am here. I am ready. I am open. Guide me. And in this month, in this moment of divine crystalline ignition, there is the shield of Zadkiel. And if you don't have the shield of Zadkiel, go grab the shield of Zadkiel. Keep working with the shield of Zadkiel. It's expanding. And as you're seeing here, the mantra of self-ascension, I am here.
Open your mind.
That's what happens. When you really declare, I am here, it opens your mind beyond the limitation of the density trifecta.
Yes.
I am ready.
Expand your vision.
So breathe that in. To declare, I am ready, expands your vision beyond the limited perception of consciousness of this realm. Remember, the third eye can only open as far as the paradigms. It is the star consciousness through your expansion that carries you further, which brings you to I am open.
Ignite your heart.
And I think Shri's been doing that during this whole show. Get to that 500 level of consciousness and you ignite your heart with an opening that sustains you as your new root center, as the foundation of all that you are, so that you can sincerely bow your head with all humility, bringing your hands to your heart. Guide me.
And heal the world.
And that's how we are healing the world, through the guide me, to guide me. And I need to share with all my heart that it is the guide me that has ignited the passionate action that Shri and I so wholeheartedly and dedicatedly are putting into this March equinox event. This is not an event. Do we have a graphic? This is not an event. This is a moment that counts for humanity. It's a moment where we can come together as one and honestly say to humanity, we are beyond our individual egos. We are beyond our individual need for fame and glory and money. And to come together and literally be in the ceremony of each other's traditions with our sincerity, love, and presence, to be supported by extraordinary music. I mean, the musicians that are piling on is just incredible. To be supported by extraordinary beings that are going to be offering ceremonies from around the world who can't be with us live. This is, you feel your breath? February 16 with the ignition of the crystalline full moon through April 16 when we move into the heart moon, we are in a moment of up level. And the energy that is around us, the energy that is on the planet right now, is very much in the mode of self-sabotage. And that mode, that merkaba of creation is every bit of aware of the power of the law of instantaneous manifestation as you are.
Mm-hmm.
And so I am here as the Sea of Neutrality is a moment to say yes to you. A moment to say yes, to stand in that energy of the incredible 0 point energy generator that you are, to go beyond the limitation, to let the ego relax. So you've been doing one mantra for 1,000 years. You've been doing one way of thinking for thousands of years. That's why we haven't gone beyond where we've gone before. This is the time for us to come together at the table as one, to bring each one of our generals together so that may we all stand saying, yes, we are here, knowing that we are collaborators.
Yes.
And this is what Avesa International is doing. And this entire March event, every single dollar raised is serving all of the worldwide pain relief, helping the indigenous voice to be raised once again so that our children's children have the right to this planet as much as we did. But we're the ones that are being tasked in this moment with the great gift of being awake without having to remember it all. We don't need to go through our own Groundhog Day. You're here now. If you're here, I have complete, full awareness of all the potentialities and where we are, and you have the same ability. That's why you're here. That's what self-ascension can ignite within you. So for those of us that are coming together in the Sea of Neutrality right now, the voices of the indigenous wisdom, the voices of our own universal spirit are coming together as one voice. Can we really do this at such a critical moment? Well, I believe we can.
Absolutely.
I know you do too.
Absolutely. It's essential that we remember to guard our inspiration.
Yes.
And to not discard the inspiration. Each of us has the capacity to be at every level of consciousness. So consider this for a moment. You can be the thief and the liar and the killer, or you can be the saint and the guide and the Merlin, the wizard. All of that and all of the sacred archetypes are at your disposal. All of it. And I'm not here to suggest you need to pick this one or that one. I'm
suggesting you let them all go.
Yes, but these are the ways that we can begin to lift out of the patterns that keep people and humanity stuck. It's when we begin to lift out of the patterns, we discover the potentiality of what is really here in this universe, as opposed to the pre-formatted, here's the described way it ought to be. And that is a critical moment to be at. And so, beloved ones, when we consider that we are elastic, that we can be the highest levels of consciousness, and we can be the really gritty ones as well, then remember to choose. Choose your best. Choose the highest that you've ever experienced as your new norm.
And to know you can is the place where the smile enters.
That's it. And that's where the steadfast commitment and the focused awareness and the trust in your own divine nature come to play.
Complete trust. Absolutely. And so as we move forward into this moment, right, as we move forward into the conscious expansion, what in me invited this to be?
Yes.
Right? Hey, celebrate. What in me invited this to be? Shri and I, we are so blessed that this experience of this community comes together every weekend. And imagine Monday night. I am so excited for tomorrow night because there is so much more happening. And when we come together on Monday nights and the way that we expand, sincerely, if you're interested in learning more about this work, if you really want to dive into the gift of self-ascension, join us at Monday Magic. It's 2 Mondays a month, and it's outrageous. It's this community on steroids. And Shri and I in personal interaction with you, because we do only offer this through our Zoom. The gift of those connections, imagine that amplified 10,000-fold. I mean, how do you feel right now? Join us in March. And we need social media help. We have all these wonderful sponsors. We just had a bank come on board, capitalica.com. Check them out. We've got all this stuff that's happening. give yourself the blessing of not only being here and co-creating with us, we're going to be receiving your feedback all weekend long. We're going to be inviting your sharing. What did you just receive from all the ceremonies? Remember that we will be live videoing and, live broadcasting, not just the ceremonies that are live here at Toast of Blue Mountain. Simultaneously, we've got a whole day on Saturday, Friday night, and Sunday of beautiful ones and musicians that are also coming in. Your feedback will form on Sunday. All those that are participating on Sunday, we will deliver as a unified field, standing together as one voice. We will deliver this message for humanity. And it will be delivered by the one and the all, and your voice matters.
Yes.
Be in these ceremonies, join us, send in, and once you register, you'll learn how you can be sharing with us throughout the weekend, where we will be collecting your sharings and your responses, where the elders will be with them. I mean, this is your opportunity to actually communicate with people that you might not ever have an opportunity to communicate with directly.
Mm-hmm.
It's affordable. It's easy. We are pretty much sold out here at TOSA. I mean, if you were interested, let me know. Maybe somebody might want to share a room, because we really are, I think, pretty much sold out for the live. However, hey, join us on Zoom and help us. Let's get this, the presence it deserves, online.
Yeah.
Help us help humanity, because we're all doing this together, guys.
It just seems that our world has a lot of noise,
right?
And a lot of marketing and the rest of it. And sometimes it's difficult to sift through all of the things that come in front of you and to say, no, that's wholesome. That's going to illuminate me and others, and I choose to participate.
Go to unifyingvoices.world, unifyingvoices.world, because that's what we're doing. We're unifying the voices of the world. So unifyingvoices.world. And Shri, I want to jump back to the density trifecta for a minute, because
yes,
you see it, guys, right? I know you're looking at this now going, I really get it now. And this is why we wanted to talk about this throughout the whole show. This is why from February 16 to April 16, pay attention, because the law of instantaneous manifestation is anchoring, and it will be sustained. What is anchoring it in your life? Look at your fear, your doubt, and hesitancy. It is those three that continue the cycle of self-sabotage way outside of our being truth, which is this. And I want you to just breathe this in for a moment. This is the merkaba of Self-Ascension. You can learn all about this at shriankira.com. It's free. Just go click on Self-Ascension and learn. But as you're gazing at this, notice the chakras and notice the heart center. The heart center, where the arms are outstretched, becomes the foundation of all that you are. And you see up at the top there where it says co-creative power, and you see that your eyes are illuminated as the base of the lotus chakra of your true vision. The blessing that all of humanity is living in right now is that. And we're in that for the rest of the month. And so if you're conscious of it, then you are commanding the law of instantaneous manifestation outside of the victim triangle, where you have ascended into the transformative energy as the teacher, mentor, healer. The what in me invited this to be the celebration of the all that is.
Yes. Teacher, mentor, healer.
Exactly.
This is the natural evolution as we lift into our heart, as we forgive ourselves and others, and we trust our inner guidance, the divine master within. We naturally begin to serve. We naturally begin to mentor and assist. And this indeed is the pathway that awakened consciousness is traveling.
And you are at a moment, and I want to show you guys again the 2022. Shri showed it to you a little earlier. I want to show it to you again right now. There it is. Remember that we are at a very unique moment. We have stepped off the ascension escalator that exposed the 7 polarities of free will. We knew this time was coming. We've been talking about it since 2004. We've been putting out the Pyramid of Spiritual Awakening. We talked about the 7 polarities of free will. They have all played out. And what has happened is here we are in 2022, outside of the paradigm of linear time, and literally creating as and with the Sea of Neutrality under the influence, if you look at the top right, of 12 consecutive full moon up-level experiences. We are right now in that moment where we have already gone beyond wherever consciousness has gone beyond before. And this is why David Hawkins' book got dated, because there were only certain levels of consciousness that he was able to even understand or see at the time that he was on the planet. That's why the expansion of this work is now, because you, and I mean you are at the capacity to be able to sustain a frequency of consciousness that has never existed in our co-creative experience of potentiality before. We are at a very rare anomaly moment, and we are consciously aware of it without the need to have going through a Groundhog Day. Enough of us are consciously aware of it that we actually are here now. The fact that I am here as the Sea of Neutrality is a miracle in and of itself that we have not ignited before. This ignition is not a singular job. This is not a Sri and Kira. This is all of us. It is about all the generals coming together and holding the highest for each other and sustaining the law of instantaneous manifestation as the teacher, mentor, healer that can lay down the ego of the single self to be here as I am, the Sea of Neutrality, holding open the transcendent energy that all are served. You do not have to agree with each other. You do not have to believe one another. It is simply about lifting out of all of those concepts of right and wrong into the transcendent state of the eternal smile that can appreciate, love, and sincerely support all that is unfolding with the focused awareness and eyes on the divine at all times. So breathe that in, because that's where we're at right now. That is this week. This is a week, Shri and I have recently put out several articles at shriandkira.com. Another reason to go to shriandkira.com is to please read the two most recent articles. We just came out of the January, the first of those 12 full moon ignitions was Can Humanity Survive Dogma? Well, while that first, and remember, these are like 12 gongs on a bell, so none of them are going away. They're building on top of each other, but the ones that come in sooner, how much of the effect they have is going to be dependent upon between now and April 16th. So, Can Humanity Survive Dogma? Please go read our article. Right now, is humanity ready for the transformation of this alchemical shift that we are going through? We are right now in the middle of a massive alchemical transformation, and I'm going to go ahead and put up that 2022 energy flow again, because if you look right in the center, if you go to the center where you see that beautiful golden pillar energy, well, you notice there's that dissolving kind of violet flame image of a being. That's you really standing in your transcendent nature, able to fully step into density when you need to, and fully cognizantly aware that you are within the sphere of transformative energy. Well, if you look all around and up, you'll see all the moving sacred geometries of alchemical transformation, and you see the flames and the ignitions that are coming up around that, all sustained by this fifth dimensional frequency field that is inviting as many who can sustain that frequency to be part of this. So imagine right now you're getting 12 knocks this year saying hello, and this one right now is all about everything in your life is transforming, like it or not. One way or another, everything would be changing right now anyway. You're not excluded. It's universally part of this selected moment of potentiality that we are all in. In this potentiality, this is what Shri and I are doing. This is what you are doing. This is where you are. So if you can breathe that in and really let go of what? I'm going to put it up one more time because I have to put it up one more time. You got to let go of this density trifecta. If you can really let go of that fear, doubt, and hesitancy, then you release the spin of the victim energy and free yourself to be. That's what's facing you in this week in a way that is saying, let your inspiration be from the highest and don't be afraid to do it and put it into action. Because this week it's all about the golden transformation of that alchemical presence of humanity itself. I am here as the sea of creation.
Everything that's in the outer world reflects habit. And the habit is energized by fear-based realities. And as you listen inwardly, as you trust your divine nature, you will just melt through the habits. However, have mercy on yourselves, because when we are stressed, when we are interacting with density, oftentimes the old patterns come forward as almost a knee-jerk automatic reaction. And this is where your breath and your ascended consciousness go, oh, wait a minute, I'm in that.
Now, I want you to breathe that. I'm going to interrupt Sri because what you're saying matters for this question.
Go for it.
So I want to read this question because part of what Sri's saying is part of your answer, and I don't want to run out of time because this is an important question. To EM, hey, sweetheart. I've had so many uncomfortable and sad dreams this past week. I'm not surprised, by the way. If things are coming up to be healed, that would be wonderful, but it leaves my heart heavy. Any insight? Yes. This is the density trifecta. What's happening is that you're actually at a moment of breakthrough.
Yes.
You are right there. Oh my God, you're ready to break through. And so this is that density trifecta, and your dreams are the final subconscious habit that would keep you stuck. So immediately, somebody get this woman the evasive dream practice. If you're in the chat, somebody put in the link for the evasive dream practice. Remember, when we close our eyes to sleep, whether we sleep or not, your consciousness isn't going anywhere. You're just giving it over to your density part. When we consciously command our sleep space, then we are able to also heal at a greater rate and with greater trust in the self. And Sri, everything you were saying, I felt was so important for them to hear.
Yeah, it feels like there's an alignment there.
Right.
And one of the things I also want to add is you don't have to figure it out.
Right? Let that go.
There is an old pattern in density that says, I've got to explain it, analyze it, figure it out, justify
That's victim, rescuer, abuser.
Let that go.
Yep.
Love yourself.
Yep, there it is.
As you are, and forgive all of one of my favorites is I unconditionally forgive myself for showing up to be hurt, for showing up in this argument.
Right, that's important, guys.
I forgive myself for thinking I have to be right.
And you know what? Speaking of forgiveness, before we would run out of time, when you're at SriAndKira.com, SriAndKira.com, because you want to go there, scroll about 3/4 way down on the homepage, and you will see our forgiveness practice. It's
powerful.
Free. Get into it right now. It will change your life forever, and it's free. It's our gift to you.
So, beloved ones, as we come to a close for this moment, let's pause together and breathe.
Let's close with a mantra today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Continue to breathe and just think along with us as we recite the mantra of self-ascension. I am here. I am ready. I am open. Guide me.
We love you so much. See you next week or tomorrow night or both.